All right, guys, this is my second video of the day. I just finished Black Sabbath. This is 10 minutes later. I'm going to do King Crimson. What do these bands have in common besides being British? Well, I said earlier that you could make a strong case that Black Sabbath all but invented heavy metal, even though there's clear pathways, stepping stones, antecedents towards metal. In that same vein, you could say that King Crimson all but invented prog. And I'm going to say prog, not progressive rock, because progressive rock was a term being used in the late 60s, which could have described could describe Cream or Hendrix, the Beach Boys circa Pet Sounds. But prog, as we know it, more or less starts with King Crimson and their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, although I could do a whole show just talking about this if I could get someone to talk about it with me. I think that if you look at all the albums which you could consider to be prog, In the Court of, some released in 69, some released in 68, I will give you one viable candidate whose name is going to escape me, but it's the second album by the Nice. It's got a Latin title, Ars Longa Brevis River. Forget the word I just said. It's all but a prog album. It's a prog album in all but name. You got Keith Emerson plundering the classical canon, the European classical canon. We have a long, suite on side 2. It's a prog album. But for today's sake, we're going to say the first true prog band, the first true prog album is In the Court of the Crimson King. Wow. Now, I've already decided, because this is probably going to be a long video, I'm trying to shorten these things. I'm not going to go into songs so much on this in this video. I'm just going to talk about albums, and prog is nothing if not an album genre. Everything on here is classic. Maybe, the second half of Moonchild gets a bit carried away, but everything else is epic. You got Greg Lake, whom I still to this day think is the best vocalist that Robert Fripp ever worked with. On vocals here, you have lots of mellotron, to the point that it almost sounds like a Moody Blues album sometimes, but better than any Moody Blues album, except maybe Days of Future Past, and this is a more important album than that. Pick it up. Long time ago, over 10 years ago, Stephen Wilson did a big box set where he did, 5.1 mixes and stuff like that. And then he redid it, I don't know, a couple of years ago. This is a better one. This has even more mixes and way more. I'm going to be showing you guys these big King Crimson boxes because they're smorgasbords, an embarrassment of riches. This is 26 discs. You get Blu-rays, you get CDs, if you don't even have to have a surround sound rig. Just, if you're into this album, that's the way to listen to it. So, In the Court of the Crimson King, the prog album of 1969, bar none. Nothing even really comes close, I don't think, anyway. Wow. Well, okay. Next one is the son of In the Court of the Crimson King, In the Wake of Poseidon. This album, by this point, the band had all but disbanded. Robert notoriously has a difficult time keeping versions of King Crimson together. One can only assume he's a tough guy to get along with. Greg had already quit for sure. In fact, Robert, in an effort to get Greg to sing on this album, had to give him his PA system or something. Greg had already hooked up with Keith and Carl, and he saw more money could be made with the LP. Probably they are easier to get along with too than Fripp. This is a great album though. I'm not crazy about the Devil's Triangle on side 2 with the bolero beat, but everything else, it's. I'm not gonna say it's almost as good as In the Court of, but it is. I'm going to say it. It's almost as good as. All right? Okay, I don't have I don't have a CD of Lizard to show you, but I'm going to show you this. This is Sailor's Tales. This is the big Stephen Wilson box set of the of 70 to 71. You get In the Maker Poseidon, you get Lizard, and you get Islands in 71. This has all those albums remastered in surround sound. And then, of course, it's also 27 discs in here. One might say that these albums are, these box sets are a chore to get through, but I loved them, you know. These boxes are a Crimson head's dream. This is the album cover for Lizard. Very, very beautiful. Here's In the Wake of Poseidon. You know, they always had really cool album covers. And I guess they didn't give us one for Lizard. It's too bad. Can I find you a picture of Lizard to show you? Anyways, while I'm looking, I don't think there's going to be one. Anyways, if Poseidon was, you know, son of In the Court of, Lizard's a whole different beast. He's got a new band with him. I think he's got Mel Collins on sax. Different singer. It's very progressive. There's a song about the Beatles on there, but you would be forgiven if you didn't know that. You know, I didn't know it. I had to read the background of the... It doesn't sound anything like the first two albums. Crimson was a pretty good band about doing that. They did not... Rarely did they make two albums in a row which sounded alike, the way that they did with In the Court of and Poseidon. Lizard's a whole different beast. I don't know which album I like more. Both are really good prog albums, which came out in 1970, but neither one, you know, matches the epic grandeur of In the Court of. Anyways, this is a wonderful set, this Sailor's Tales, because it gives you all three albums. Oh, by the way, I think, yeah, this is the cover of Lizard. It gives you all three albums and in surround, plus a gazillion other live things, and you know, anything you want from that era. 70 was a big year for Crimson because you got this McDonald and Giles album too. These guys were in Crimson, you know, in the original version of Crimson in the Court of album. They split from Robert and the band, like rats sinking from a sinking ship. This is a pretty good record, you know, in terms of just, you know, nice Crimson spin-offs. This is solid. Most of this is good, and you can tell the drumming is the same, you know, as it was on In the Court of the Crimson King. So, you know, McDonald and Giles, if you're interested in Crimson spin-offs, check it out. Maybe listen to it online first for free before you decide. Okay, in 72, which just occurred to me, they did a live album, poorly recorded Earthbound, which is on here. Yeah, disc 18, Earthbound. So that's yet another reason to get the Sailor's Tales box set. You get the three studio albums and you get Earthbound. Earthbound, the performances are real good. Guys, there is no bad era live for King Crimson. They kicked ass any time to the present day. I mean, if you see this is stream of consciousness association, you know, thinking I have here right now. Adrian Belew, Steve Vai, Tony Levin, they're all touring under the name Beat. You know, they just had a show here in L.A. They're hella good live. You know, I mean, you can't see original members of King Crimson performing this music and not be blown away. It's such a technical marvel. So any live Crimson, get your hands on it. I mentioned when I was doing my Dead video that I had more live Dead than probably any other 5 bands combined. Crimson would be the only exception. I still have more live Dead than anything else. But these big major discs these box sets that I'm showing you have so many live discs on there that, wow. I've got more live Crimson than I have studio Crimson. Okay, in 73, we have the immortal Lark's Tongues and Aspics. Folks, this is one of the major prog albums of all time. Of all time. Again, he's got a new band, all right? He's got John Wetton, you know, who was, I've always thought was a singer similar to Greg Lake. Definitely from the Greg Lake school of you know, vocals. Bruford is on board. Bruford, of course, ex-Yes drummer. Bill Bruford, whom I've said before is my favorite progressive rock drummer, would drum on more King Crimson albums than any other drummer by far. He had the full band here. He's got Jamie Wire on percussion, you know, so he's got a drummer and a percussionist. Jamie would only be on this album. And anyways, it's epic. It's classic. I told you I wasn't going to go into songs, but Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 2, having those really heavy, almost like metalish Fripp crunching riffs that he would return to for the rest of his career. It's just an aspect of his playing that's cool, which I think draws headbangers into the world of Crimson. Not, of course, not everything that they record sounds like that, but that is a part of their universe. So, and, oh, well, I've already shown you this. This is the big Stephen Wilson box of Lark's Tongues. This one, oh, not as many. This has 12 discs, DVDs, Blu-rays, lots of CDs, lots of live shows. Not well-recorded live shows, though. But after a while, your ear gets adjusted, and you're just getting off on the incredible music. Wilson goes back, and he does projects again, Stephen Wilson. This one just came out. This is the album in Atmos. Now, I don't even have an Atmos set, but I bought it anyway because it was cheap. This is everything that they recorded during those sessions. So it's got stuff on here, if you want to get this, that the big box doesn't have. But it doesn't have all those live shows. So, yeah, you kind of got to get both. All right. 1974, the last year of King Crimson in the 70s. We get Starless and Bible Black. Great album. Not as epic as Lark's Tongues, but, you know, Great Deceiver. Well, you know what? Half of this album, if not more, is live, and it's improvisational. These guys would literally go on stage, start playing stuff that they had not prepared to play. They would do that again later on in the 1990s. That is what keeps me from thinking that this is quite as good as Lark's Tongues or Red, which I'll get to in a second. People often posit that the trilogy of Lark's Tongues, Starless, and Red are as good or better than any other triptych of prog band LPs. I think that this is not quite as good, so I still go, as I told you in the Yes video, I still go with the Yes album, Fragile and Close to the Edge, as being the ultimate 3 studio LP in a row prog albums. Plus, more than half of this is live. But it's still a great album, guys. It's probably still a classic, too. Yes, I bought the big Stephen Wilson box set. Again, as with the Lark's Tales, a lot of kind of not so well recorded live stuff, but the performances are so good it doesn't matter. This is a much bigger box than the Lark's Tongues box. This is 27 discs. 27 discs, DVDs, Blu-rays, and a hitload of CDs. So if you're a Crimson buff, well, if you're a total Crimson buff, you already own this stuff. But if you're on the fence, you think it's worth the money, check out the prices online. Get the big box set, which is for your favorite Crimson album, and then decide whether you want to continue down that road. Okay, Red. My second favorite. Oh, you know what? I'll show you this first. My second favorite King Crimson album. Red. He's still using basically the same band that he had assembled with Lark's Tongues, but of course they're deserting him too. By the time of Red, you can see he's just got Bill and John. I forgot, it was David Croft was on violin, right? So it's just a trio, but Red rocks. It's, yeah, I like it more than Starless. Do I like it more than Lark's Tongues? That's a good question. They're different sounding albums. Just because I feel like it, I'm going to give you my top 5 Crimson albums. I rarely do this. In fact, it's going to be the first time I've done this on a video. I'm going within the core of the Crimson King as being my favorite King Crimson album. I'm going to go with this as my second favorite, Lark's Tongues as my third. Now I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to go with Discipline from '81 as being my fourth favorite. And then I'm going to surprise you even more, Thrack from '97 as my fifth. So there you go. That's my top 5 favorite Crimson albums in order. Red is a beast, as is The Road to Red, which is the big Steven Wilson box set, which covers this era, just one album, right? One of 2 albums in '74. This one's got 24 discs, Blu-rays, DVDs, and lots of live CDs. Not every single live performance on these CDs is on the Blu-rays, I don't think anyway, but a lot of it is. Oh, also if you get this, you get their USA album. Now USA is an album that came out in '75. I don't even have a single disc of that. It's real good. It's from the tour, you know, that this box set chronicles. There you go. That's the LP cover. When you get the USA album, though, it is an edited. Though some of those tracks are edited. Plus, you got Eddie Jobson, the keyboard player, overdubbing some keyboards on there. He wasn't even a part of that tour. So if you get this box set, you get the unedited tapes for all of those shows. Plus, you get the USA album. I mean, you can't miss. Okay. Robert Smith disbands King Crimson for the first time in '74, '75. So I should play catch up here, shouldn't I? He had worked with Eno at that point. He had made a couple albums, both of them semi-classics in the ambient world. This is the first one. This is No Pussyfootin'. Now this is like Frippertronics. This is Eno playing his tapes because you know Brian's not a musician. And then Robert just kind of solos in an atmospheric way over those tapes. This is background music. I don't concentrate on it. It's nice. It's pleasant. '73 is when this one came out. Evening Star is more of the same, but not as memorable to my estimation. More ambient, but still, you know, for Frippertronics. Both of these albums are highly regarded, though, in that field. You know, but I like songs, I like music, I like riffs. So I'm not that big a fan of this stuff, but I'll take No Pussyfootin' over Evening Star. Okay, in the mid to late '70s, Robert was not docile. He worked with Peter Gabriel, he worked with Daryl Hall, Bowie? Yeah, Bowie. And he didn't come back and make a full album, his first real solo album, until Exposures in 1979. This is a great record. It's still proggy with his crunchy metallic riffs. Not proggy in the way that King Crimson had been. There's a bit of new wave, you know, type sound to this stuff. 32 discs, folks. This is bigger and more massive than any '70s King Crimson box. Again, Steven Wilson. He did a lot of other stuff at the time, too, besides the Frippertronics LP, which is excellent, and does have Daryl Hall, Peter Hamill from Van der Graaf, Gabriel is on a version of Here Comes the Flood. It's an excellent record. He did, what's it called? Under Heavy Manners or something like that in '80. Also there's another album of Frippertronics in '81. That's on here. There it is. God Save the Queen, Under Heavy Manners. That was '80. The Frippertronics album is '81. He also did a really good kind of post-punk new wave album in '81 called The League of Gentlemen. That might be my favorite after Exposure. All of that's on here. The League of Gentlemen album has some tracks on there, the original LP, which has never really been on CD, by the way, of like people talking and stuff like that, which is not on here. But all the music on that LP is on this box. And there's so much other stuff on here that I gotta be honest with you guys. I got through all of the King Crimson boxes that I showed you prior. I did not get through this whole thing. I just got burned out, you know. But it's, you know, it's here. I'll get to it eventually. Excellent purchase if you're into any of these Fripp albums from '79 through '81. Okay. I said I would do the career of Bill Bruford when I did my Yes video. I said I would do it in this Crimson video. I'm not doing all of the solo stuff, guys. For instance, I didn't even do that, whatever it was, Giles and Fripp album that was out in '68, pre-King Crimson, because I don't have it, for one thing. But Bill Bruford put together an excellent band called UK. I've talked about them before, especially when I mentioned Asia. This came out in '78. Again, I'm always talking about alluding to the decline of prog in the late '70s. These bands were beginning to change. They were going in a more commercial direction. Not as many new great prog bands were hitting the scene. This is a really good album from '78. If I was to make my top 10 list of prog albums from that year, this would be in the top 5. All right. He's got Alan Holdsworth, who's one of my favorite guitar players in any genre here. He's got Eddie Jobson. It's just a strong commercial prog album. And virtually almost as good is Danger Money from '79. All right. I don't think Alan's here anymore. Oh, no, he's not. But, you know, still good. Now, Bill took off, and well, he's done lots of solo albums too. This is the one album of his I'm going to show you. It's called One of a Kind. Came out in 1979. Very good, very good. It's fusion, as you know, as so many prog bands went in a fusion direction. So many prog. If you're a really good prog musician in the '70s, you did fusion. You know, I mean, Soft Machine was pretty much a fusion band after the first 3 albums. So I do recommend this. One of a Kind, 1979, Bill Bruford. That's all we're gonna do for him. The '80s, 23 minutes. I think I'm doing well. If you get this big on and off the road box, you get all 3 of the '80s King Crimson albums. You get Discipline, you get Beat, and you get 3 of a Perfect Pair. Now, Discipline is by far the best one. I love it. Very Talking Heads influence, though. You get Adrian Belew on here on vocals, who was, you know, a very distinctive, well, he's an American for one thing. So you got Robert, who had been living in New York at the time. That's where he did Exposure. So the once, you know, grand tradition, the British tradition of King Crimson was now mixed in with some filthy Yanks. But I love the Discipline album. It's you know, it's as good as a great Talking Heads album from that same era. I'll do a Talking Heads video too, because they're a fantastic band. Beat, not as successful, but maybe half of the songs on Beat are as good as the best material on Discipline. And what I think is a better album than Beat is Three of a Perfect Pair. Now, trying to find you a picture of, oh, well, that's Three of a Perfect Pair, I think. The cover I already showed you. That was Discipline. Now, is there a cover of Beat on here? No, I promise you I won't spend too much time looking for this, because people complain to me when I spend too much time. They say dicking around on these videos. Oh well, that's it. I won't waste my time looking for it then. You can look up online though. This box, On and Off the Road, let's discuss this just for a second. Not as massive as the other ones. This is 15 discs. It's still a lot though. Blu-rays, DVDs, lots of live stuff, you know. This covers King Crimson in the 80s. You don't need anything else. Even if you don't have a surround sound rig, I would pick it up. I'm recommending it. Okay, that covers the band in the 80s. Robert, I told you I'm not going to do all of the solo stuff. He made a couple albums with Andy Summers from The Police. Not bad, especially the first one. He made an album with Toya, his wife. He made more League of Gentlemen or crafty guitarists, whatever, albums. To the point that by the 90s, he was, again, you know, looking to up his name in the business. And so more League of crafty guitar players, or whatever you call it, guitarists in the early 90s, until you get to, he puts together the Crimson name again, Thrack. First there was an EP called Vroom in the mid-90s. I love that EP too. I love Thrack. Thrack, he's got 2 guitar players, 2 bass players, 2 drummers. So it's a big, powerful sound. I told you it's my 5th favorite Crimson album. I like it probably more than any other Crimson fan I know. This box set, also not one of its major big ones, but it's still 16 discs. All right, Blu-rays, DVD-A, and lots of CDs. Again, you can see I'm speeding through this. I'm not going into the songs. I like most of the songs on here. It rocks, for one thing, harder than the 80s albums, but it doesn't mean I like it more than Discipline. All right, so there you go. And what am I forgetting? Nothing? Good. This is not going to be a long video because I'm not going into the songs. This is epic though. This last mega box set I'm going to show you, Heaven and Earth. This is everything after Thrack. They made 2 albums in the early 90s. Oh God, all this is in Japanese right now, so I can't remember the titles. Power to Believe came out in 2003. That's a better one than the one that came out in 2000, whose name escapes me. Oh, that's so embarrassing. When they came time to do the surround sound mixes for this box, Pat, the drummer, had to go in and re-record his drum parts. So the surround sound mix on here is not from the original mix of the LP mix. Construction isn't the title. Anyways, that could be the weakest King Crimson album. But Power to Believe is pretty good. And they branched off into many different directions after Thrack. 18 CDs on here, 2 DVDs, 4 Blu-rays. Folks, this is another box I didn't quite get through, just like the Exposure one. But it's still great stuff. I still recommend it. And since then, there really hasn't been a King Crimson album regular since Power to Believe. But this King Crimson project, there was lots of shows and stuff called projects after Thrack, by the way, by Jackie, Mel Collins, and Robert, is okay. It's again kind of background music. This is just kind of like guitar doodlings. Robert and Jackie did, and then Jackie said, "Hey, can I take these tapes and do something with them, overdub them, release them?" Robert said, "Sure." It's pleasant, but it's not essential. All right, this isn't surround 2, so every King Crimson studio album anyway is in surround if you want to go in that direction. After that, that really is the last thing from the studio to bear the Crimson name. There's any number of live things. You can get those since then, because like I said, they were still, while they were touring, still a hella great band. This is Meltdown, live in Mexico. It's a filmed concert, also in surround. Very good, very good. As is this one. I don't know, what's this one called? To Unseat the Hold of Monkey Mind. I'm never going to remember that title. All right. Another filmed concert showing you how great these guys are. You know, again, if you got a big screen TV and a surround sound rig, put it on. It'll just envelop the room in sound. You'll love it. There was a documentary a couple years back called In the Court of the Crimson King. King Crimson at 50 that Toby Ames did. This is a big set for that. You get the movie and a bunch of other music. It's a fun documentary, but fun might not be the right adjective because it's just a bunch of disgruntled former Crimson players bitching about Robert Fripp. But, I mean, you know, if he's that hard to get along with and that's the kind of impact that he leaves on people, then what do you expect, you know? So, wow, I breezed through this thing in about a half hour. Now I'm thinking I should have spent longer on some of these albums. That's okay. You get the idea. King Crimson, one of the few prog bands I've done videos on so far, Pink Floyd would be another one, that I can basically hang with any Crimson album. Even that one whose name I can't think of from 2000, which has a different name when you listen to the remix. They're all good. The band was too talented to make a subpar, you know, mediocre record. The worst you can say about some of the albums is that they're not as good as other ones, like Beat or that one from 2000. Islands, I don't think, is as good as the two albums from 1970, but Islands is still an excellent record, right? So Robert Fripp, you know, for all of his personal failings in his relationships with others, is a fascinating guy, a really great guitar player. And what I respect about him and the way he handled Crimson was as soon as he felt that things were going stale, he disbanded the group, didn't pick it up again until years later when he felt he had something to say again. And even though he's always been something of a dictator with that band, he doesn't dominate the songwriting or anything. He lets other members of the band, you know, have their say, right? That's why, even though he doesn't really get along with Bill anymore, Bruford's got nothing but positive things to say about the music of King Crimson. You don't really hear Bill wax enthusiastic too much about his Yes recordings, but he does about Crimson. So, you know, that says something to me. So, okay, Wilson signing off. King Crimso.